us who duped your song? Would you have taken a mic and whooped his fucking ass with it? If you knew that the price of brew was 8 a 6-pack, would you have paid for a snack and made your way out the back?
If you knew where you'd land, you would lay out a mat. If you knew it would hail, you would sport that hard hat. If you knew you'd get shot, you would put on the vest, so the slug from the 9 would just bounce off your chest.
Would you have paid for a sack of straight garbage if you knew that tomorrow was the first day of harvest? If you knew that your wife was out cheating, would you still drop a G on that getaway weekend?
If you knew she'd get pregnant, you would nut in her face. If you knew he was narking, you would not catch the case. If you knew pigs were watching, you would not pull the gun. Murder one would not happen, would not be on the run.
What you know, 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 what you know.
If you only knew.
What you know, 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 what you know.
Don't you wish you knew? If you knew who she was, then you would not be macking. If you knew what was cracking, would have been pistol packing. If you knew DEA was her place of employment, then the date that you set be a cancelled appointment.
If you knew your whole crew was steady ripping you off and talking shit behind your back, would your soul could be pissed? And if you knew that big brass would like a big ass, would you have crashed on the floor with your eyes on my drawers?
If you knew what would happen, you would not hit him up for the dope in the alleyway. You then shut him up. Would have passed up that offer if you knew in advance that the deal would go sour. You would not take the chance.
If you knew that in a week you get hit by a bus, would you trade your Ford Focus for a T-Bird Deluxe? It sucks, but if you knew it, then you may as well do it now. When the time comes, drive that motherfucker through it. What you know, 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 what you know.
If you only knew.
What you know, 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 what you know.
Don't you wish you knew?
If you knew when you were young you'd be a fat man, would you have tried to play instead of being stat man? If you knew you live and fail around the holidays, might you have drank a little less during your college days?
If you knew